call to order the Rosemont Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, November 26th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any additions to tonight's agenda?
There are no additions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there any input from the audience on items that are not on tonight's agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move forward to the consent agenda. Our consent agenda this evening includes the minutes from the October 22nd regular meeting. Are there any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kenninger, seconded by Commissioner Reed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have no old business, so we will jump straight to public hearings. The first public hearing this evening is a request by Fratalone Companies for renewal of a small-scale mineral extraction permit for 2025, and I will turn it over to Julia.
All right, so a little bit of an overview of the request. So the Planning Commission is being asked to consider a request to renew the small-scale mineral extraction permit for Fratalone Companies, Inc. for 2025. The small-scale mineral extraction operation was newly approved by the City Council back in May of 23. So a little overview of the site update. So 22,475 cubic yards of sand was extracted from the site during Q3 of 2024, and then it's estimated that an additional 30,000 cubic yards of sand will be extracted during the remainder of 2024. There have been no cubic yards imported, material imported brought into the site though the applicant does expect material to be brought in 2025. Mining has taken place in the northern portion of the site, shown on the site plan, which I'll go over later on in the presentation. For the remainder of 2024 and into 2025, mining will continue to occur in that area, and they plan to work their way south in phase 1. So a little bit of an overview of the site location. So the mineral extraction site is located along the western frontage of Emory Avenue and south of County Road 42, which you can see is outlined in red on the map in front of you. The parcel is 73.39 acres in size, with the extraction activity taking place on 26.08 acres in the southern portion of it, which you can kind of see it outlined in the updated aerial on the southern portion of the site. So here are a couple aerials that were taken in August 2023 and October 2024. So you can see that the main access into the site is off of Emory Avenue, and mining is planned to occur over 2 phases, which you can see phase 1 is located on the east side of the site, which is directly west of Emory Avenue, and they plan on continuing west from phase 1 into phase 2. Here are a couple of panoramic images from April 2023, which you can see that was prior to the approval of the permit in May 2023, so that's what it looked like prior. And then this is an aerial of April 2024, where you can see that they started the extraction in the northern portion of phase 1 and then also completed that access point off of Emory Avenue. Here's a overview of the site plan that was submitted. So you can see that phase 1 is located in this area. County Road 42 is shown on the left-hand side of this screen. So you can see that phase 1 and phase 2 are on the southern portion of the site. So you can see that there's outlined for proposed stockpiles for phase 1, which is located on the northern portion of phase 1 and also southern portion of phase 1. And they do plan on continuing to work their way west into phase 2, but they do plan on continuing to work in phase 1 in 2025. Overview of the reclamation plan. So the proposed final grades as depicted on the reclamation plan will bring the southern portion of the property very close to elevation of the northern part of the property. The applicant plans to execute into the ridge line and then maintain those grades throughout the southern portion to maintain at the same elevation as the northern portion of the site. And then a couple site photos. So as part of the annual review of mineral extraction permits, staff performs an inspection of the site and then also consults with the police department. So staff found that there were no violations of the permit done on site, and then also there were no records of any incidents reported to the police department as well. So recommended action. So in front of the commission, there is a motion to recommend the city council approve the Fratellone Company's small-scale mineral extraction permit for 2025, subject to the terms and conditions in the attached draft conditions for mineral extraction. I can answer any questions that the commission may have, and I do know that the applicant is present as well.
Thank you, Julia. Are there any questions for Julia?
I just want to, it did mention that there's, they actually are planning on importing or bringing in materials. What kind of materials are those? Maybe it's a question for the applicant.
That might be a better question for
Okay.
the applicant. They
Thanks.
can speak to that a little bit more on what they do on other sites that they have as well.
I think this is just a generic question. When they do extraction for any type of mining, if there's trees involved, are there tree removals being done as well? Because there was a picture, that one right there. How does that happen when, like, trees are removed when we kind of like to have so many trees in place?
So tree removals for mineral extraction aren't covered by the tree preservation ordinance of the zoning code. The site is reclaimed, and then future development has to plant trees as required by the ordinance based on the zoning district of whatever is where the mine is at. So they are allowed to remove trees for the extraction of minerals.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Julia. At this time, we will open up the public hearing for this item. Anyone in the audience would like to speak may come to the podium stating your name and address for the record. And if the applicant is here, we did have the one question on the materials being imported in, if we can have the applicant address that.
Hi, my name is Tony Fratellone. I live at 14259 May Avenue North in Stillwater, Minnesota. And we are the company where I'm representing Fratellone Companies. The question was asked about the import of material in there.
Yep, the types of material you plan to import in.
It would all be a compactable, recompactable material in there. The way that we had drew our plans and everything when we originated the permit, it was a mine to extract the sand out of there and refill it back up with compactable material so we could still make a buildable site out of there. It's not to haul in garbage or anything of that sort.
How do you define compactable material? What is that? What kind of materials is that?
It would be, you're replacing it with, it could be a clay. It just might not be the greatest sand that we have that we're exporting out of there, but a compactable, buildable site can work on clay as well.
Got it. So it's raw materials essentially.
Not topsoil, not swamp deposits or really wet material. It would be a compactable so you can still have footing underneath it.
Got it.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
One more general question, I guess, just out of interest. Do you guys serve any local projects? I know it's kind of nice to see some of our local mining operations serving local construction. Now, you guys work mostly locally here? Or?
Actually, with the extracted material right now, we're working on that meta site. And some of that material is going there right now.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
That's great.
So after the mining is done, they'll fill it with clay or some sort of compactable material, right? And then kind of what happens to that site afterwards? Does it just kind of
It can be developed, it could be, whatever it intends to be, but it's a usable site for if you wanted to put a development in there, or they wanted to farm it again at some point, or whatever have you, you could reutilize that material.
Could like trees grow back using that?
Oh, definitely.
Whatever you're filling it with?
If you look at the aerial of the site, it's really hard to tell that on there, but there's a really drastic downhill slope down to that lower field. It's probably, if I had to guess, the elevation change is probably 30 to 40 feet higher up to that top elevation. So basically, we're taking that in and moving to the south. And as you can see, well, you can't see it on this plan, but if you look to the east or to the west of this site, is the other continuing gravel pits that are gonna join each other. So they will end up blending together, and our grading plans are all connect together, and we'll make that a really nice looking area. I know I can speak on our side. Ours is gonna look really nice.
Yours will look very nice when you're done.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're not going to vouch for the others.
Yes.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this item this evening? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kettiger, seconded by Commissioner Reed to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Public hearing is now closed. And with that, any other questions or comments before we move forward with the motion?
Yeah, just one question, and this is more forward-thinking. I mean, I like this, the plan, and, you know, they're active in the community, and they're serving a local project. That's all awesome stuff. But I know there's been some news about the potential rerouting of 55 down to 42, which is certainly a ways out, certainly past a year, right? But more of a forward-thinking question, are there any updates on that? Is that a project that's likely to go through?
So that's Madam Chair,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed, that's a MnDOT project in coordination with Dakota County. So they've had a series of workshops. They have a project page. I think it's both on MnDOT's website, possibly Dakota County's as well. It's definitely on MnDOT's site. So no news, I guess, to share that we've prepared for tonight per se, but the city is certainly a participant in those discussions with those other agencies.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Just for my edification, and I wasn't on the commission when we approved this the first time, these are generally done for a year, and the first one was just done for a year and a half because there was a stub period.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Anthony, you want to take that?
Yeah, this was my item when it first came through. Yeah, the initial approval was mid-year, and so they just did an administrative review at the end of that first year. They didn't, as you saw in the presentation, they didn't really even start mining until this year. And then now with the zoning code update, these are done on a 2-year term. Staff is recommending some of these to be done, to be approved for just 1 more year so that we can stagger them and not have planning commission meetings that are 5 or 6 mineral extraction permits at once. So going forward, it'll be 2 years eventually for all of them.
Okay.
They got 18 months or so, then they're going to get 12 months, and then they're going to get
Then
24
they're gonna
months.
get 24 months.
Yep.
And just to clarify, and so is that generally the case with the small-scale mineral extraction versus large-scale, which we're seeing later on the agenda?
So the large scale will also be a 2-year review as well. The staff will still meet with them and expect groundwater testing that we get annually, inspect the site as well. But from a complete renewal submittal, it'll be every other year on the part of Dakota Aggregates, which is our one large-scale mineral extraction permit. And just a note of context, a lot of the townships and other parts of Dakota County have a 5-year term for their renewals, so we are a more frequent cadence for those than other parts in Dakota County.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? We could entertain a motion.
Right. I'll go. Motion to recommend City Council approve the Fratallone Company's small-scale mineral extraction permit for 2025, subject to terms and conditions in the attached 2025 draft conditions for mineral extraction.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Bugай, seconded by Commissioner Ellis? Biedner. I didn't hear which one of you it was. Sorry, seconded by Commissioner Biedner. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on our public hearing section this evening is a request by Keystone Development Partners LLC for approval of a site plan to construct office warehouses in the Biscayne Business Park. And I will turn it over to Anthony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This will be the second development within the Biscayne Business Park planned unit development area located in the south portion of the city. Just a little summary, the applicant is proposing construction of 5 multi-tenant warehouse buildings. Each building will be built in a way that can be configured for individual tenants' needs. So if they need just one single stall or a back-to-back bay, or perhaps even the full building, they can make use of it that way. But the applicant is proposing to construct 5 of those buildings on 3 existing parcels within the Biscayne Business Park. The applicant will be retaining ownership of them and renting them out versus a condo-style development that we've seen in other areas of the city. The site itself is zoned B2 with that PUD overlay. The proposed office warehousing spaces are permitted uses within that zoning district. With that PUD overlay, it does allow for the multiple principal structures, and then also the Biscayne Business Park PUD allowed for a provision to that the parcels within the business park are served or accessed via a private road. It is a little unique in that regard from our other business park. Staff has included some conditions of approval in the recommended action relating to site lighting, landscaping, and waste management. I will discuss those further on in this presentation. So here's the site itself. As I said, it's consisting of 3 existing parcels within the Biscayne Business Park, which is located on the west side of Biscayne Avenue, just north of County Road 46 or 160th Street West. Just further west of the site, you can see Highway 3, South Robert Trail. This is a sort of the standalone industrial area in the southern portion of the city. Other businesses in there are the Minnesota or Metropolitan Mosquito Control District, AAA Auto and U-Polar Parts, you can see on that aerial there in the western portion. Frana has a site in there, and Dakota Unlimited Fencing is in the southeast corner of that general area at that intersection there. So the existing parcels, as I said, there's 3 of them. Because they were anticipated to develop as 3 separate parcels, they have perimeter easements that will need to be vacated, and those run north to south between the 3 parcels. Additionally, the applicant will need to go to the county and combine those 3 into just one single PID to allow for the site to be considered as an entirety. Though that is a condition of approval as well. Each of these sites does include stormwater ponding around the perimeter. You can see it here on this site. It's basically mirrored to the south. Here I will go over just the general site layout as well as the landscaping. There will be 2 access roads coming off of 158th Street. I think that's actually mislabeled as 158th Circle. But then you can see the 5 buildings. The 3 larger ones in the center, they will be back to back as shown in this western one here. And then there will be 2 smaller buildings, the rear of which will face the property line, separated from the property boundary by that northern stormwater pond there. There's parking on the site that I'll go into in further detail. You can see it's pretty well placed throughout the entire site. The applicant's landscape plan does provide enough trees. There was 9 existing trees along Biscayne Avenue that were required to be planted with the original development due to the fact that it wasn't known exactly how long it would take for the site to be developed. The applicant has placed the rest of the trees around the site and around the parking lot areas. They are short. Some of the foundation plantings, they're required to have 215. They only show 150 on the site. There is room for those to be added. Therefore, staff is simply recommending a condition of approval that the site, landscape plan be updated to add those foundation plantings. Additionally, there's 2 trees here located within an easement area. This does contain stormwater infrastructure leading to one of the ponds. Those trees there will have to be replaced, although there is room for those to be moved elsewhere as well. From a site zoning and setback standard perspective, it does meet all of the minimum setbacks required by the B2 employment zoning district. Those are shown on the table before you. Staff is interpreting the south parcel boundary to be their front yard, simply because that's where the accesses are from. Additionally, the maximum lot coverage is 75%, and the site plan provided by the applicant shows an impervious area of 52%. A lot of that is due to the fact that there's significant ponding on site, taking up a lot of that area that could have been developed. Here's a floor plan showing those individual units, just to give the commission an idea of how those will be laid out. Each one does show an entry or waiting area with a restroom accessible from that, and behind there is an office that would be accessed through the larger warehouse area. The applicant can probably speak a little bit more to the flexibility and how these can be laid out for future tenants. But there does show a potential for some mezzanine level as well within there. Generally, the interior of the building is outside the purview of the Planning Commission. Simply sharing this for some information and context of how the site will be used. The applicant provided some elevations. They show a mix of materials, or a mix of colors. The materials are an architectural metal panel with a striated pattern, in varying colors. Staff does find this material to be better than the concrete panels or other materials that are specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. The maximum building height is 20 feet, or excuse me, the maximum building height in the zoning district is 50 feet. The buildings shown by the applicant on these elevations indicate a maximum height of 20 feet, below the maximum allowed by the zoning ordinance. Some parapet walls at the corners increase interest. There's awnings provided above the entrances to further break up those walls. The applicant did provide some renderings to give the commission an idea of how those buildings will look once they are built. You can see the awnings over the entries, some of the parking areas near each of the entrances, as well as off to the left of that northern picture, or the upper picture, showing additional guest and visitor parking as well. I'm going to talk about site lighting a little bit further on, as the applicant did not provide a site lighting plan. Their renderings indicate wall lighting. In conversations the applicant has had with staff, they've confirmed that they will be using wall lighting. A condition of approval staff is recommending is that they get us an actual site lighting plan, although staff feels comfortable that the site, the zoning standards would be able to be met as far as illumination at property boundaries go, just with the technology and LED lights nowadays. Here's just another rendering showing the site. You can see those mix of colors and materials around the entrances and at the corners, and the articulation of the roof line. So as I said, there's parking provided kind of throughout the site. There's some stalls located at the entrance to each of the units, and then some additional parking around the perimeter on the northeast and the west side here. Just based on the types of uses, staff calculated the square footage of the warehouses and the offices. The office calculation does include the bathroom areas as well. The minimum parking requirement would then be 60 stalls, and that's shown on the table on this slide. The applicant shows 66 on their plans. If they may lose a couple due to trash enclosures or centralized waste collection areas, they do have a little bit of wiggle room there for that. And then speaking of trash enclosures, I will touch on that in the next slide as well. Parkland dedication, typically this isn't something that comes up during a site plan review, as the park dedication is collected with a subdivision. When the Biscayne Business Park was approved, their subdivision agreement did specify that park dedication would be collected as each lot develops on a per lot basis. So for this one, that is $42,330. The site is served by existing utilities. Stormwater is managed by the existing ponding on site. There are perimeter easements that need to be vacated to allow for the buildings to be permitted. And the fire marshal did ask for a turning radius exhibit. That was provided by the applicant and found to be sufficient as well. So, as I said, there are some issues with the site plan, none of which staff finds to be so significant that they couldn't be met prior to a building permit being issued for that site. Namely, the site lighting. The applicant does need to submit a site lighting plan that shows that it does meet the zoning ordinance standards. The applicant is working through centralized waste collection. They are planning on identifying an area for some dumpsters for the tenants. If that is the case, they'll need to submit plans for the enclosure that match the building exteriors. Otherwise, the garbage bins will just need to be within each individual unit, just like they are in any other part of the city that has decentralized trash collection. And then lastly, the landscaping, the relocation of those 2 trees and the provision of 65 foundation plantings, which would likely occur around the parking and drive aisles. So staff is recommending approval, subject to the conditions listed before you. You can read through those, but namely the ones that I would call out are the provision of a site lighting plan, the updating of the landscaping plan, and determination on how trash will be collected. And if it is collected from a centralized area, the trash enclosure would have to meet the requirements of the city code. Staff is happy to take any questions the commission may have. The applicant is present who can speak to any items that staff is not able to address.
Thanks, Anthony. I have one question that I'll start with, and then we'll see what the other commissioners have. Can you go back a couple of slides? I think it was one of the first elevation slides that I didn't notice until you were talking about it. Maybe back one more? Nope. How about forward? Right there. So the buildings are really, they've got a good mix of elements in them, except for you can see on that bottom picture that looks like a super long wall. Maybe it's just the perception, because when I look at it on here, it looks like it's got elements on both sides of it. I know we try and not have like long, just
Right.
blank walls, but then I also looked at the 3 building units. When I look at those elevations in the packet, it looks like and I don't know if we had any like maybe it's just the north and side walls of that are just very bleak.
So the code requires any stretch of wall longer than 100 feet has to be
Okay.
broken up. The parapet walls on the ends mean that central kind of white area that you see there on the right
Yep.
is less than 100.
Okay.
Also note that that area does not face any public rights of way, and so is less impactful as well.
Okay, what about the 3-unit buildings, like the north elevation? Is that going to be more than 100? Because that elevation looks like it is all just,
I can't remember what the exact length of those buildings
Okay.
are.
maybe the applicant will be able to answer
Yeah, they
that.
can maybe speak to that
Yeah.
as well.
Are there any other comments or questions from the commissioners?
I had a question. So, just, what is it, south of there, is that like the Concord Ninja Gym, that kind of businesses where there's actually like more public, people can like go to that building and like, I guess from a use perspective, is that permitted in this, or is it strictly more for warehousing, no kind of public use, like frontage, so to speak, where somebody would go there for a service of some sort?
So and I'll let the applicant speak a little bit more on how they plan on marketing the units. The zoning code does allow for some small showroom areas, no retail or a lot of coming and going in that regard from a business standpoint. But yeah, they certainly could have visitors and clientele for the tenants going there.
Because I was just curious, looking at like this drawing, whether, like if someone were to get out of their car, how would they walk to the business without getting in the way of the other cars? Because there's no sidewalk.
Sure, yeah, that's a good point. The applicant will be putting in curb stops to prevent any vehicles from going into the building. We don't require a sidewalk in this type of a development.
Okay.
Anthony, this is at the south, this is off of Biscayne, correct? And we know it's closer to 46, but we also know Biscayne goes up to 42. And there's been a lot of concern lately about that intersection. Now, I don't think this is going to increase a lot of traffic volume. Nevertheless, the way that intersection is currently laid out, so I for one, I come home, for example, from Cub, I go east on 42, and then I turn left or north on Biscayne. And that particular turn, it's almost impossible to see oncoming traffic because of the way it's laid out. If there's somebody's in the left turn lane heading south. So there's a lot of concerns about that. I'm sure this is going to be one of the main questions from people who may be watching. Do you have any updates on when we can expect signaling to be at that intersection?
Certainly, I can provide some context on the conversations that the city's had with the county on that. As the commission is aware, with the middle school going in at that corner as well, the county is planning on having a signal fully built and operational by the opening of the middle school. I can't speak to what sort of short-term improvements they have on that site or at that intersection, just extremely near-term. But the long term is to have a signal at that intersection, as well as a realignment of Biscayne Avenue that allows for a more perpendicular approach by Biscayne to the County Road 42 to allow for some better visibility as well. That's about all the information that I have. But it's kind of an ongoing thing. Obviously, city staff is very aware of the need for improvements at that intersection.
Can you describe it? I mean, that's great. I'm glad there's concerns. How are we, other than the county telling us this is going to happen in maybe 2 years, how are we as a city advocating for more safety and trying to push for that with the county?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Reed, I can take that question. So between our own police department, our public works department, they've been actively engaged with Dakota County. It's a county road there, so they're the lead on any ultimate road configurations there. But especially with the uptick of recent accidents and other incidents in that area, the county is prioritizing this for either temporary type of improvements before the full signalization occurs with the completion of the new Rosemount Middle School over there. So they're actively working through that right now at Dakota County.
That's great news. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner Whitman.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The site plan, or the site lighting plan that was not submitted with the application, is that something that was supposed to have been submitted with the application?
Yeah, it's on our list of submittal checklists. It's something staff didn't notice when it came in. We were looking more for parking, landscaping, kind of the bigger things that are harder to change and the closer we get to an approval. But it should have been submitted by the applicant.
Okay, and so that's what I'm just kind of asking with, because once again, we're in a situation where we're approving this with a condition that the standard be met, basically, but our role as a planning commission is to determine whether the standard is met,
Yeah.
So it's kind of punting, our duties, I guess.
No. Yeah, understood. Also, staff does review any sort of conditions of approval when building permit applications do come through. So we do get the final plans prior to the issuance of that building permit, and certainly happy to share those with the commission. I understand it leaves your kind of desk, so to speak, after the meeting, but we're happy to share those plans as they come in too.
And Madam Chair, Commissioner Whitman, certainly those are options before the Planning Commission tonight as a part of your decision. If that's an issue that wasn't provided as a part of this that the group feels is of importance to make that decision, you do have a couple of different options in front of you. It's either the recommendations of staff as presented, or you always have the option to continue the item or some other version of that if you do want to see that as a part of the completed application.
Yeah, I guess it just puts us in a kind of a tough situation because in general, we don't want to hold up a project, yet a project applicant hasn't submitted the necessary materials for a complete application. So it seems that part of that process, it should be staff ensuring that those materials are submitted before it's presented to us. Sounds like maybe it wasn't recognized until later on. You know, that's maybe why we're not seeing it here. But in general, once again, I've stated this before, one thing I'm looking for is a complete application with support in the record to support all of the necessary standards, which is, I feel, my duty as a planning commissioner to make sure that those standards are met.
Are you looking for a response?
No, that's not.
We do have a 10-day review period when we do receive applications that we review them for completion. As I said, this was one, the site lighting is not, it was not the top of the list of things we were looking for when we were reviewing or doing our initial review. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other question I have is with the lots need to be combined, and you mentioned that they need to go to the county to do
Yeah, the county will combine lots if they're in the same plat, and they'll do that without city approval because it's basically combining 3 tax parcels into a single PID.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Reed?
Yeah, one more question, Anthony. Directly north of this site is a residence, right, between it and like Omni. I seem to recall when we saw this first plan come through, we talked about some kind of landscape plan that created a buffer there, but I haven't seen anything that kind of shows how that lays out from a landscape plan perspective.
So the stormwater pond really takes up a whole lot of that area. That's kind of the distance, creating that buffer there. There isn't a whole lot that can be done. There could be some additional plantings along there, but ultimately that area is guided for business park development as well. So while the current use is residential, the city's long-term comprehensive plan identifies that as future business park development.
Okay. Are there trees on the north end here? I mean, I'm not.
There's trees along the north side of the parking area. I think, you know, the applicant certainly could fit more here if we see a need. They do have to put more foundation plantings in. It's kind of hard to see here, but this shaded area along the drive aisle and parking is identified on the plan as foundation plantings. They would be advised by staff to place those on that north side of the parking stalls.
And foundation plantings, though, are short, though. they're-
Shrubs, yeah.
Shrubs, okay.
Anthony, remind me again, we do have some sort of requirement with parking lots and screening, but is
Yeah.
that just along
From public right.
public right-of-ways? Okay, so that wouldn't be this area then?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. It would be the east side of it though, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Yep.
correctly?
Yep, and the applicant's plans show that.
Yep. Okay.
Do you know approximately the distance from this lot line to the home? Is there like a large land space buffer? I can't remember how much was there.
I can't speak to from the different distance from the lot line to the home. It looks maybe 80 feet. If I'm just looking at the road right of way being 60. And then there's the ponding area there as well.
Okay. And that resident was informed about this?
They would have gotten the letter in the
All
mail.
right, thank you.
Any consideration or thoughts about signage along Biscayne? Some of these buildings are kind of hidden back there, and as traffic increases, people hitting the brakes, right? And maybe not seeing, it's I don't want to say it's blind, but it's kind of a tough corner. There's no lights there or anything. I'm just kind of concerned about traffic having to hit the brakes quickly because they're weaving in and out. And if there was a monument sign or something that was kind of notifying that there's an entrance or some sort of visible indicator that there's going to be traffic coming in and out of that spot there as traffic
On
increases?
Biscayne Avenue?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Biscayne Business Park Plan Unit Development Agreement specifies that one single monument sign for the whole
Okay.
business park is what's allowed there.
Okay, great.
We don't have sign plans for that. That's something that staff gets and reviews administratively through the building permit process.
Okay.
This is just a guess, but I'm guessing right now there's no right turn lanes into, like, it's just a 2-lane road on Biscayne, right? There's no special left, right turn
Correct.
type lanes there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments or questions for staff at this time? Okay, thank you, Anthony. This item is a public hearing item, so at this time, we will open up the public hearing. Anyone in the audience that would like to speak may do so at this time, coming to the podium, stating your name and address for the record. I would like to ask the applicant if they can come forward about the 3-unit building. It does look to me like it's a little over 100 feet, and so I would like to just understand if there's architectural elements on that north side of that building, those 3-unit buildings.
Hi, my name is Ben Yunan. My address is 5417 Woodlawn Boulevard, Minneapolis. Yeah, those buildings are going to be right at about 100. They're about 33 feet.
Yeah, and here it
per
says
unit.
35 feet per unit, so
35, so we're over
105.
100. Yeah, so we're very open to adding those architectural elements.
Okay,
If
thank
it's
you.
breaking it up with color or more push-pull, those are things that our architect can definitely, happy to do that.
Okay, that would be great, I think, to just break that up a little bit.
Absolutely, yep.
Would be good. Okay,
Building on Commissioner Bieder's question, actually, what kind of business are you expecting?
Yeah.
It's an interesting layout.
Yeah, we've done some preliminary marketing already and gotten some good feedback, but a lot of what's listed on the permitted uses is right in line with what we're looking for. So distribution, kind of warehouse, some trades, we have data center, production studio, light and custom manufacturing. We have a event decorator, shipping and distribution, car wraps and detailing, wood shop and showroom. So it's kind of that in-between. Not so much, it isn't retail, and it's not all warehouse, but it's kind of that in-between where maybe 1 or 2 clients might come. Yeah.
one thing that went to my head, but I don't know that it's necessarily suited for that, but we did just, I think last meeting, we talked about the dog daycare, the pet daycare type. Is something like that here or not?
It's in the permitted uses. We
Okay.
haven't had a specific tenant reach out for that yet, but
Okay.
we'll be, when we lease these, then, obviously we'll check the permitted uses. If there's anything that needs further approval, we'll check with them.
Okay, so that could be a potential, and that would probably draw more traffic.
For sure, right. It depends. And so our job too will then be to kind of put tenants in places where there is more parking.
Yep.
So we're going to need to make that, appropriate use of space and how parking is laid out.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Do you guys already have then drawings for like the curb stops where the little buffer between the,
I think
Parking
so.
lot
It was one of the last conversations we had with the architect. I think they're drawn or they will be drawn, but that's our plan, yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there's, safety when
Yeah.
parking the car and getting to the door.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then we know that the lighting plan and the trash enclosures are 2 conditions that staff has recommended for this evening. Do you guys have any updates on where you're at with lighting plans or
Yeah.
the trash?
Yep, so both of those things, so the trash it was in the latest drawing, so they did get put in.
Is it in
Yeah,
Anthony? Where did Anthony go?
We have not gotten the trash enclosure.
Okay,
I think they were in this drawing, I'm pretty sure.
In between the two 6,000.
Yeah, in between where it sticks out, right there they are. Oh, those are the 2 trees, okay, so it's in that spot where those 2 trees are,
Okay,
between the
can you-
2 3-unit buildings?
oh, between the 2 3-unit buildings?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
And so they'd be pushed back and set there, or if the turn radius isn't enough for the garbage truck to back in, then they'll go in the 2 spots just on the west corner of that 3-unit building, in those 2 spots.
Okay,
And the space only requires 2 spots, and we have 6 remaining parking spots extra.
okay,
So that would be our backup plan.
okay, and it will be enclosed similar to the building
Yes.
design?
And/or we could just have them enclosed in everyone's unit on their own trash, which is an option. I think our preference is to have a shared trash, but we have the option as well.
Okay. And then lighting,
Yeah, so we've already talked with our architect about that. He said that, we'll work with the lighting engineer to determine that, and he's already stated that we need to have at least 1-foot candle at the perimeter of every 1-foot candle of illumination at the perimeter of the property. So we've already calculated what we need to do. It's just a matter of drawing it up, and that's part of our, where we put the poles or where we put the lighting on the building and how that's calculated. So we haven't done that, but we have someone lined up to do that.
okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions from the commission? Commissioner Whitman?
Is that who submits the application, or who works on the application? Is that you two, or?
No, our architect and general contractor did.
Okay, so the architect either intentionally or forgot to submit the lighting plan at the.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. I can't, I'm guessing it was unintentional, but I don't know, yeah. And we found out about it, in communication with Anthony, and so we did start the communication already about how to get that taken care of.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on this item this evening? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kenninger, seconded by Commissioner Reed to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have a request before us. Anthony, can you put it back up there? And also, we did determine that those 3-unit buildings need some additional elevation work. I don't know the right terminology. It's escaping me at the moment. But should that be also added as an action, as a condition?
Yeah, Madam Chair, you certainly could add that as a condition. I would say something like update the rear elevations of the northernmost buildings to provide parapet walls at the corners or something of the like.
Okay.
Or additional articulation or architectural elements to conform with the code.
Got it.
Do we need to add something about the curb stop since it wasn't in the site plan?
It's required by the city's engineer in their review memo, so.
So it would be
one
part
the
of number
conditions
7
is-
then?
Yeah.
Okay.
The city engineer, okay. Okay, any other comments on this item this evening? Yes, Commissioner Whitman?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I have no problem approving this as is with these conditions. I once again, want to reiterate, I have concerns. We have this kind of ongoing issue with having conditions that standards will be met in the future, where we don't have the actual evidence, in the record to support those standards now. And I feel that it's best if we have that in the record. And I understand their consultant, their architect didn't submit those. From my perspective as someone who has helped developers submit applications, dozens and dozens of applications in my career, we always look to not cut corners and make sure that everything is submitted. So I think it's really important, and if we keep letting this slide project after project, I'm just concerned that maybe from the outside perspective, they're looking at the city of Rosemount saying, well, they'll just put it as a condition and we'll just deal with that later. Let's just rush this through. So I'd rather have a process in general where we have everything in front of us. It's all there. We don't have to condition future standards being met. And again, I will approve this project. I think this is a great project, but that's sort of a general statement that I think we should really tighten up that process in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitman. I understand your point. I think we've had some items recently where I feel like that maybe there's been some some of our code changes and some questions. So to me, that like, I think as you separate them, you know, whether it be confusion around landscaping or the timing of it, we've also had some applicants that maybe aren't as good with their submittals. And so I feel like in some of those cases, we've continued the items and made them, fix them. I think also the size of the project and stuff makes a difference. I think continuing to work on making sure we get everything is obviously a good practice. And then we'll always have some things that maybe will end up being conditioned because,
Sure.
you
No,
know,
I understand.
working with the trees or the parking, you know, little things like that maybe can't get figured out, but, and then, Anthony, sometimes we require the conditions to be met before it goes to city council. Is that another? I mean, obviously, we can have it in the building permit here, but I think if the applicant could try and have it in time for the city council meeting, then at least it gets put into the packet and part of that process and recorded a little bit more publicly.
Madam Chair, yeah, definitely, we try to get them updated so that the council does have the final plans. This being a site plan review, it doesn't go to council.
Oh,
They
that's
will be
right.
seeing
Thank
the easement vacation
Okay.
there.
I forgot it doesn't go to council.
But it would be prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Thank you. Yep, I forgot about the difference in that. Thank you for that. Okay. So with that, I will make an motion to approve the site plan for Keystone Development Partners proposed office warehouses in the Biscayne Business Park, subject to the conditions being met prior to issuance of the building permit as listed 1 through 8, with the addition of condition 9, that the 3-unit building elevation, north elevation is updated with architectural elements to conform with code.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Kenninger, seconded by Commissioner Whitman. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next public hearing item on our agenda this evening is a request by Minnesota Paving Materials for renewal of its interim use permit for a seasonal asphalt plant. And Anthony, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant for this is the operator of a asphalt plant in the Dakota Aggregates Ancillary Use Facility. This is the southeast corner of Dakota Aggregates site. There's 3 or 4 businesses within there. Semstone is operating. They will be having a renewal of their interim use permit coming before you. There is also the wall plant, I can't remember, Wells Concrete wall plant down there as well. The asphalt plant before you today has an interim use permit term of 10 years. At the time of its original approval in 2014, the 10-year term was determined to be ideal to allow ongoing use without continual renewals for an operation that doesn't really change. And then every 10 years, just to check in to see how's development going. Is it starting to get closer where this would be a problem and impactful? So just a summary of the request, as I said, as part of the ancillary use facility within Dakota Aggregates mineral extraction permit. The zoning ordinance does require a separate IUP for each business, and as I said, this one was approved in 2014. The site itself, you can see, is in the southeast corner of Dakota Aggregates mining area. And it's the far east one of those 4. Immediately west is Semstone, and north is the wall plant. This is a site, it used to be operated by a company named Hard Drives, which was since taken over by Minnesota Paving and Materials. The interim use permit does require the plant to be at least 660 feet from any non-agricultural district. At the time of its original approval, it was much further away from residential development, but with the growing Amberfields community, it is still 1,700 feet away from the plant, the non-agricultural use. So it still does meet that condition, and staff is recommending the renewal of the IUP. Just a little overview of how the operation works. Trucks enter on this southern stretch of Akron Avenue and head north from County Road 46, where they would enter the site, come down to the south, and then make a 180-degree turn where they load up in under these silos here. In 2016, there was an amendment to the interim use permit to allow for an expansion. They weren't able to meet the capacity demands of development in the area, so this western area was approved with these large storage tanks as well. The site also contains raw materials that are delivered here from Dakota Aggregates mine, as well as some asphalt that is reclaimed from other projects and used to make new asphalt for future or ongoing road construction projects. Here's a view, an oblique view, showing a little bit more of the site itself. The main process occurs in this big drum that kind of rolls and is heated and creates the asphalt in there. But the process really starts at these bins where loaders take the material and dump them in these bins, which are conveyed along these belts and then into the system itself. And then here is where it is loaded up on the trucks just below. It's kind of a similar use over here with these tanks, and the process is occurring, but you can see the area where trucks are loaded as well on the south side here. So staff did reach out to the police department. There have been no complaints or concerns regarding the operation. Staff finds it to be in continued conformance with the standards and requirements. Those are listed in the staff report, namely related to haul roads. I would note that number 4 there, the asphalt trucks can only go down to 46. They can't go up to 42. They did ask if they could use the new Akron Avenue, or I should say Dakota Aggregates asked on their behalf if trucks could use the new Akron Avenue, and it's the city's preference that they do not. Although they are using some of the Umore Park roads to access Meta's site to allow them to get there without going on public roadways. So with that, staff is recommending approval, and the applicant is here who can speak to this as well for any further questions.
Thank you, Anthony. Any questions from the commission?
Just one, Anthony. It mentions the air permits and the waste byproducts, and we say that, the staff finds that the standards are met. I mean, do you guys get those reports from the agencies that monitor this? And
It's reviewed by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency as part of Dakota Aggregates permit, because they also have an asphalt plant as well. So we don't get those on a regular basis, but they would notify us if there's any failures, like they would for any of the other businesses in the city.
And they've been in compliance?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Anthony? Yes, Commissioner Ellis.
Anthony, we talked about the 660-foot setback. Do we know, and just, I might just not know myself, but has the area south there of Amber Fields been sold for development yet, or is that still owned by Umore? Where does that stand in the development pipeline?
Certainly, Commissioner Ellis, that area is still owned by the University of Minnesota, and from what staff has learned and seen of the various remedial investigations, that area is unlikely to be sold in the near term without significant cleanups.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Anthony? Okay. Thank you, Anthony. This item is a public hearing item, so at this time, we will open up the public hearing. Anyone in the audience would like to speak on this item may do so at this time, coming to the podium, stating your name and address for the record. Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kenninger, seconded by Commissioner Reed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Any final comments or questions before we move forward on this item?
I'll make a motion to recommend the city council approve the renewal of an interim use permit allowing Minnesota Paving Materials to operate a seasonal asphalt plant subject to the following conditions, numbered 1 through 4.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Reed, seconded by Commissioner Biedner. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This item, as well as the first item on our public hearing agenda tonight, the request by Frattalone Companies, both move forward to City Council on December 17th. As Anthony had mentioned during the Keystone development, that item does not move forward to City Council. The decision tonight by Planning Commission is final for that item. Is there any new business?
And there is not.
Discussion? Any discussion items this evening?
I think we have one item related to the 2025 Planning Commission meeting schedule. Specifically, the meeting date for December of 2025. That meeting, if we followed the same order where it would be the week ahead of the Christmas holiday, would be the third Monday of the month. That falls on December 15th that year. It is earlier than we usually get in December. Staff is wondering if the commission would have any interest or ability to hold the meeting on the 22nd. That would be the Monday before Christmas Eve, which falls on Wednesday. So the 23rd is also an option. I don't know that anyone really wants to have a planning commission meeting on the 23rd, but just wondering if there is any ability or interest to have the December meeting on the 22nd, the Monday before Christmas.
The 15th, the 22nd, or possibly the 23rd.
Yep.
So my preference would be not the 23rd.
Mine too.
So I will say I would prefer not the 23rd. I would be okay with the 15th or the 22nd at this time. I don't have no one conflicts with either one of them. I prefer the,
Calendar year out looks empty.
It's a ways out.
it's a ways out.
It was
part of me
more
prefers
if you
the
know you're going to be
15th.
gone, like you're always gone that week or whatever. 15th works fine. We can.
If it's easier for staff to have the extra week, though, I like either one work for me. Anybody else have any strong opinions at this point in time?
No, ma'am.
Okay, what do you want to start with? You want to start with the 22nd and,
Let's start with the 22nd,
Start
and we
with the
can adjust with,
okay, so if.
Yeah, we
get
can
it-
always change it.
yeah.
Okay, so we will review it next September, October-ish timeframe and see how people's holiday plans are shaping up at that time.
And what is the date of this next December one?
The next December one is December 16th. So we will meet on Monday, December 16th, and then January 28th, February 25th, and then I did see March 17th, right? Okay, March 17th. So I just call out that March one, even though we usually only look 3 months out, but we don't have the calendar quite out yet. Liz did send it out to us, but the 17th of March is not the fourth Tuesday, it is the third Monday. So I think it's roughly the third Monday, maybe not quite, but, okay, any other discussion items?
Madam Chair, no, although we would like to introduce Liz to the commission. She is our new community development technician, and we are very excited to have her. She has a bachelor's degree in urban studies from the University of Minnesota, just like myself. And she is a recent graduate of the Humphrey Institute, where she earned her master's. Most recently, she's been working for the city of Shoreview, doing a lot of the work that she will be doing here. So we're very excited to have her able to kind of hit the ground running.
Welcome, Liz.
And
Welcome
she
you
already
to
did the
team.
minutes that were in the packet and just
She's-
right into it here.
Jumped right in, yes. Okay, any updates, do you guys have any updates on the rescheduled school ribbon cutting at the middle school? No?
They haven't shared any
haven't shared
updates
anything
with
yet?
us
Okay.
yet, no.
And then Lifetime's ribbon cutting, I would assume, is probably going to be in January sometime. I think that might be one the commission would be interested in.
Yep, they're working on that right now. I would expect to see something in late December.
Perfect.
But as soon as we have a date finalized with their team, we'll send that out to the group.
That sounds great. Thank you. Any other discussion items from anybody on the commission? Okay. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Meeting adjourned.